Speaking about weapons, since we're in the year that we're supposed to be spreading miraculous medals, not only placing them in the places, but also, giving them away to people. It's one of the things I asked for in the letter. Someone asked me last month, but share us more about the miraculous medal. And I thought everybody knew about the miraculous medal, and I realized that we don't necessarily know the origins, the why, the purpose. We know the importance of the miraculous medals, but we don't know why it's important. So I decided that this talk would be dedicated to speak about the miraculous medal from its origin up to, well, there are many saints that you'll realize that how in the last century the Lord has wanted to elevate very much on high the miraculous medal. But details are important. And I repeat something that Sister Anna repeated from the reading of the Lord. Look how you listen. Listening is important because I can tell you that I am with 5 people and 5 people gave me 5 different versions of what I said. I think it happens to you too, right? What's happening? That if it's a crisis of listening, there's a crisis of a gazing. Because when one listens, one can contemplate and penetrate with greater reason the mystery that has been listened to. One of the things that the enemy wants is that we have our ears clogged. And if we don't have it clogged, we have it twisted. But there's something there. Look at what we listen to, because everything that we listen to, even though it may be very simple, it has a very important, powerful message from God. God speaks in the simplicity. And so today, I'm going to speak about the power of the miraculous medal to convert, conquer, and protect souls. First of all, we have to remember that the miraculous medal in itself, the medal in itself, is one of the most powerful sacramentals instituted by the church. Instituted by the church doesn't mean that the church invented it. That the church recognizes in this sacramental, first of all, that it was given by Our Lady. Second, that it has all the power that Our Lady indicated when she gave the sacramental. And if there's proof of millions of people that have experienced the grace and the promise of that sacramental, and therefore the church institutes it as a sacramental, official sacramental, and gives a prayer for blessing. This is very important, that sometimes we know, oh, Father, bless the medal. It's blessed, that's fine, not a problem. But many don't know that the sacramentals, but we go to hidden things. Almost barely anyone knows that a book of blessings of sacramentals exists. In reality, it's not really published, so we had to investigate in the oldest places to find the blessings of the sacramentals, like the candles, like the Saint Benedict was resurfaced after centuries of being hidden. But there's a special blessing for the sacramentals that the church has already approved. And what does the prayer of this sacramental include? Everything that Our Lady said about this sacramental. The church, in her authority, creates a prayer that includes everything that the sacramental is supposed to do and be. To be and do. Be and do in souls. And so, to begin, for me, the miraculous medal is like, it's a miraculous medal. Who doesn't know about it? Through Do Back, we've gone there a million times. But I began to write, and I realized something, that like I fell out of the tree. Yes, it's a powerful sacramental, and all of us know it. It was given by Our Lady, that the same Blessed Virgin Mary. It's not like she gives the medal. The Blessed Virgin Mary, to put it in our language, because I don't know how to explain it, acts the medal. She herself draws herself on the medal. She makes the medal with herself and then says, what you have seen, make it a seal into a medal. This is very important. And I think that's so powerful. I mean, I already knew it, but it's so powerful. It's not like Our Lady gave us a little medal. No, she is. And it's so, the power of that sacrament is so strong that she herself lives it. And we're going to see the details. Second, many times, as you said, 1830 was the apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It's not that day that the medal was made, but yes, we know, we said it since we began the year, that with the apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary to St. Catherine Abbey in Rue du Bac in Paris, the miraculous medal, with this apparition, begins what Pope Pius XII and all the popes have called after Pius XII the Marian era. As I explained many times, the Marian era, and the next talk will be what the Marian era means, but I won't enter too much into that. But the Marian era, we'll see a stronger, greater manifestation of the presence of the maternal presence of the Blessed Virgin Mary. That's what we could understand the multiplication of true Marian apparitions. And even the true ones, they're multiplied. According to Cardinal Ratzinger, when he was cardinal, there was about 50,000 reports of apparitions. Obviously, not all of them are true, but if we had 3,000 true ones, there has never been 3,000 ones in a period. Or if let's say there were 10,000. We see a multiplication of the presence, maternal presence of the Blessed Virgin Mary in the history of humanity and the Church. We also see a multiplication of Marian movements, Marian charisms. Our Lady is very important in these times. All the magazines all the magazines show Our Lady and John Paul II. In Life magazine of Christmas, it was the Blessed Virgin Mary of Medjugorje. There's always something. Our Lady attracts, brothers and sisters. It's impressive to see how many people are attracted to her. Either they love her or they hate her. But the ones who hate her, we know that it's influenced by the enemy. And we're going to see this even to the indifferent ones, even the ones who don't go to the church. Even I'm not speaking about the ones who have this hatred, diabolic hatred towards Our Lady, but the one who's indifferent, the one who doesn't go to church, has before Our Lady melts, because it's a maternal love that will always primarily touch the human heart. So the first sacramental, this is another point that I was shocked about. The first sacramental of the Marian era is the Miraculous Medal. That it's not only this apparition initiates the Marian era, but the first sacramental, the first weapon of the Marian era is the Miraculous Medal. That is the first of this era, prophetic era, where it's been announced to us what Saint Louis Maria de Grignon de Montfort has told us centuries ago, the great battle between the enemy and the woman. But also where it's announced the formation of the great apostles of Our Lady, and where it's also announced the great triumphs of Our Lady. Now, we go back to what's hidden, and the book of Saint Louis Marie de Grignon de Montfort was hidden for 200 years. When does it appear? 1842. 12 years after the apparition of the Miraculous Medal, already within the context of the Marian era. It was prophesied in detail by Saint Louis Marie de Grignon de Montfort. Now we're going to speak a little bit about the apparition to St. Catherine Labouré, so we understand the origins of the Miraculous Medal. Because when you see the medal and where did this come from, and we don't know how to share it, but it's also because we have to understand how it came about. And I will explain a little bit about the signs of the Marian era. It was the year 1830, and it was in Paris. Our Lady chose a very well-known area, a famous place, not Bethlehem. Paris. Why Paris? Then we'll realize why Paris and what was the importance of the place chosen. To whom does she appear? A novice. Novices don't think it's just top veils. She appears to a novice named Sister Catherine Labouré, which is, she's one of the daughters of charity. We're in Ermita, in the convent in Rue du Bac in Paris. July 18th, Sunday, Marta Perez's birthday, July 18th, 1830. There are very important details here. What was the importance of July 18th, 1830? For us, it doesn't say anything, but for Catherine Labouré, it was very important. Why? Because it was the Vespers of the feast of St. Vincent de Paul, which was her founder. And since they were preparing for the celebration of their foundress, and this is important for the founders, they had some talks that night, and the Mother General gave the talks about St. Vincent de Paul. And her heart was burning ardently so much. She loved her founder very much. If she didn't, well, she wouldn't enter that community. But she loved her founder so much and had such a great devotion for him and for the angels. Devotion, the devotion to the saints, of founders, and the Blessed Virgin Mary. So she went to sleep with an ardent zeal to see the Blessed Virgin Mary. I want to see Our Lady, said St. Catherine, and I know how I'm going to achieve it. Listen how she was going to attain it. Since it was the Vespers of the founder, all were given a little piece of cloth. Let's say the exact word in Spanish. Of the linen. It was a little piece of the vestment. And she had already had certain mystical experiences with her founder. And so she tells him, you're going to obtain this miracle. And she swallows that piece of the linen of, she swallowed the relic, right? Because it's a second class relic, something he used, and asked her guardian angel to convince St. Vincent to obtain this miracle. I'm sharing like it's a story, but it's not just a story. Look at the relationship of the religious with their founders and the importance of having that relationship with the guardian angel. She was convinced that St. Vincent de Paul would obtain that same night seeing the Blessed Virgin Mary. How beautiful, right? What kind of a faith that St. Catherine Labouré had. So she goes to bed, and all the novices were asleep, and she couldn't go to sleep. She had a joy in her heart. And plus, she began to remember the moments and experiences she had with St. Vincent de Paul. And at that moment, from St. John of the Cross, trust obtains everything that one hopes for. Trust obtains everything one hopes for. So she was awake all night, asleep, and she was very awake. And then at 11:30 at night, who did she ask for help and assistance? The guardian angel. At 11:30 at night, she heard 3 times her name being called. She wakes up, open the curtains, and she saw a little boy dressed in white who seemed to be 4 or 5 years old. And the boy spoke to her and said, get up soon. But sisters, the things of God merit haste. Wake up quickly and go to the chapel. So it wasn't very easy to go to the chapel. Get up quickly, go to the chapel. The Blessed Virgin Mary is waiting for you. So he was fulfilling what she had asked St. Vincent de Paul. And what she swallowed from was the linen from the surplus, his surplus. And so Sister Catherine, and at first she was afraid, because if I get up and I go out and all the novices here, they're going to find out. And the little boy read her mind. The little angel read her mind, and he said, do not be afraid. It's 11:30 and all are very much asleep. And so she gets up, obeys the angel. Look at the key right here. Learn how to listen. She obeys the angel. She didn't obey her fear. She obeyed the angel, immediately got dressed. She did not detain. She decided to follow the angel. The little boy, it was an angel dressed as a boy, who would he always accompanied her to on the right side. And something that Catherine noted, everyone's asleep, everything's dark. And where they would pass, a light would turn on, a light would turn on. And today the Lord spoke to us a lot about light. The things of God are always luminous. The things of the enemy are always going to bring darkness to the soul, the heart, the mind, the confusions. All those internal torments never come from God. They come from the flesh, the world, and the devil. And wherever they passed, they didn't even have candles. God was illuminating the way towards the chapel. When they arrive at the chapel, and so the door is locked, closed and locked, because they have to protect the Lord at night. And the Lord simply with his finger touched the door. And the door was opened instantly. And for the great surprise of St. Catherine is upon entering the chapel, and to be surprised that the angel just did that, and it was unlocked and open. See the power of the supernatural life. Entering the chapel, there were no lit candles, and everything's turned off except the candle that's illuminating the Blessed Sacrament. Everything was turned off, but however, the moment that she enters the chapel, all the candles were lit. All the wax candles, and it was so much so like it seemed like Christmas night. The chapel was so illuminated as they illuminate during the Christmas Mass on Christmas Day. And the angel and dressed as a boy, took her to the presbyteriate and took him to the chair. And this chair where the father director sat to preach the Daughters of Charity. Saint Catherine knelt in front of the chair because the boy said, gave her a signal to put herself there. And the little boy was an angel. And the little boy remained standing next to Saint Catherine of Siena, which teaches us, where is your guardian angel? That he's always on the right side. So here's my guardian angel. She began to pray and to wait until a moment given. She listened something very beautiful. She listened to like a silk dress moving, and you know, like when it moves, it has this particular sound. Well, she heard that silk dress moving, which means that Our Lady came in a silk dress. Our Lady got up in the presbyterian area, and then in the part, which is another beautiful detail, she came out from the praying of Saint Joseph. She was a lady of extreme beauty, and she crossed the presbyterian area to come to sit at the chair where... What was so special about this chair? The chair isn't all that special. The chair was always next to the gospel. Therefore, we see another detail of the Marian era. It's the first time that Our Lady appears sitting down. She sits down. And this means that Our Lady in the Marian era will manifest more clearly the mission of being teacher. That's why she sits down in the chair. But the chair next to the gospel. And so she's going to be a teacher that's going to speak to us about what? Jesus and the gospel. Whichever apparition that says something, anything, a letter outside the gospel, it's out of God. So she's already teaching by the gestures of what the Marian era would be about. In the Marian era, we're going to see Our Lady doing things that she's never done before. To do things, and let's see what the angel says. To do gestures she's never done before. And to enter familiarity with the church. What she did in the nascent church, she will do so in this era. And it's St. Catherine Labouré, not St. Catherine of Siena. Sorry. And because it was Our Lady who sat with the apostles in the cenacle and Ephesus. Our Lady is speaking to the Christian community. What she did living in the nascent church, she'll do it now in the Marian era, which has to have a significance that I'm not going to try to interpret. But she's doing, what is she doing now, which she did at the beginning. And so she sits, and at one given moment, St. Catherine Labouré is doubts and says, how is this possible that Our Lady's appearing to me? And she's sitting on a chair, and how is this possible that all these things that are new, that she appears to me, that I'm a novice, that she appears here, that she sits on the chair, and all this is happening to me. And the angel, remember, reads her thought as the same as he read her mind in the room. And here, I love this because it's another powerful teaching for the Marian era. The angel tells her, no, not like a little boy now. Now the angel speaks as a man full of energy. So I think he transformed into St. Michael the Archangel. It doesn't say it in the story, but he stopped having a voice of a boy and takes the voice of a man with a lot of energy and very strong words. So for those that say, oh, he spoke to me too strongly. Well, God speaks very strongly. And sometimes he needs us to scream 4 times. But since he's God, he doesn't scream, but he does speak very strongly. And so the weaknesses in character are not part of Christian life. If God has to speak to us strongly, he will speak to us strongly. And if an angel has to speak to you strongly, he will speak to you strongly. And he says, why can't the Queen of Angels appear to a poor creature and appear in the way that most pleases her? See how important this is. Because she doesn't appear to... Why can't she appear to whoever she wants and in the way that she wants? And this is important. Writing this, I realize the importance, dear brothers and sisters. This is important because in the Marian era, let's say she's broken the patterns of Mariology, but no, the patterns of the way of operating of Our Lady after she was assumed into heaven. She appears a lot more, first of all. She appears all over the world. We're seeing the universal mission. She appears for more time. She appears to more, not only one, but a group, 5, 4, 3, 6. And brothers and sisters, as I answered one, why is she going to appear for 42 years? Because if she wants to appear for 42 years, she wants to do that. She's the Queen of heaven and earth. I don't have a problem with that. Because who's going to tell Our Lady what she has to do? And on the contrary, what she does is what we most need. Because she doesn't do anything that's not for the good of her children. And so if she has remained with us, and the church approves that she's remained with us 42 years, or when the church approves, and thanks be to God, she stayed with us 50 years, let's say. And so, and even her appearing, and look how bad shape we are. And so she does it however she wants, and beginning that she sits in an apparition. She sits in a chair in an apparition. So even the gestures aren't going to be the same. She's going to enter another way to intervene in the lives of her children and the church and the world. And so logically, that little scolding that the angel did to St. Catherine Laboure, and then it's like saying, why are you asking what doesn't belong to you? She does the things how she thinks that they need to be done and how God has sent her to do them. And so there, St. Catherine tells me that St. Catherine then says that Our Lady stepped up one more step, and she does something she's never done ever. She places her hands. So then St. Catherine Laboure places her hands on the legs of Our Lady. She places her hands on the legs of Our Lady and then places her head, rests her head. This has never happened in a visionary prior to this, and has never had that filial contact of resting her head on her and placing her hands and arms on Our Lady. And we already see the relationship of Our Lady with her children begins to change. There's more visible familiarity, because there's always that spiritual one, but now it's visible. And it gives me the impression that St. Catherine says there that she spent the more tender moments of her life. Because if you go back 3 centuries, the last known, let's say, because we've had apparitions always from time to time, a person here, something very small and local. But the most known was Guadalupe in 1531. From 1531 to 1830, there's 3 centuries. And so it calls my attention that when you read in detail the description of Saint John Diego, they asked him what it meant to be with Our Lady And he said, I spent the most tender moments of my life. And St. Catherine Labre also said that. To be with Our Lady, she communicates so much her maternal tenderness that it fills our souls with tenderness. And the experience, human experience, that we have of being close to her is her tenderness, her maternal tenderness. And Our Lady gave a lot of revelations to St. Catherine. And here we see another stage or another characteristic in the Marian era. The first revelations were maternal counsels for her as a religious. She spoke about all the virtues. She spoke about how to direct herself to her superior, formator, spiritual director. She spoke about behaving in the community with humility and profound obedience. She taught her how to suffer, to learn how to suffer, and that she had to suffer with patience, meekness, and joy. Also, she said, when you are tempted, passing through tribulations, run to the altar. And we're going to see a promise that Our Lady gave her. Run to the altar and pour out your heart to my son. And so here she's teaching her to never depend on anyone, but first and foremost to run to the Lord. Run to the Lord to pour out her heart, and there she will receive all the consolations that she needed. And so the first stage of the apparitions and the revelations are counsels for religious holiness. The holiness for St. Catherine as a religious, and this is something new in the Marian era. Holiness and counsels for holiness. Also, Our Lady explained to her some things that she had to guard and die in secret. So there are secrets that Our Lady gave to St. Catherine that continue being secrets. And the only place where they're not secrets is in heaven. But she died holding these secrets. And there's another detail. All the daughters of charity knew that there was a sister who had apparitions and more with the Miraculous Medal, but nobody knew who it was. And that's why she's called the Saint of Silence. No one knew except the Mother General and her spiritual director. They were the only ones who knew who was the bearer of the apparitions. So until she died, and after she died, is when we began to know who it was. And logically, why? Because the cause for beatification and canonization would be open and they would be made public. So she lived 40 years guarding the secret that she was the recipient of the apparitions of Our Lady. And this is another teaching, brothers and sisters. We can't be always saying everything, especially this era of the social media. I'm not against social media. We're in all the social media. But if we share to evangelize, nothing, you don't have to share anything. I'm going to the beach to go in the waters. Well, what do people care about that? For me, it's absurd because who cares that you're going to go to the beach and get in the water? But 20,000 people go and see you in the beach. And so it's a world of so much superficiality, so much the one communicating and the one receiving the communication. And so the social means of communication, if we're going to use them, you use them to evangelize. And if it's to share something, it's to share something that it's an evangelizing way. Now, Our Lady explained to St. Catherine Labre why she had apparitions and revelations of St. Vincent de Paul. And you'll realize and why Our Lady says it, and we can see the line of St. Vincent de Paul, because we understand by signs. Our Lady continued telling her, God will grant to you a great mission. It's going to be very hard. She told the same thing to St. Juan Diego, to the children of Fatima. She never said, God chose you for a great mission. It's going to grow great and everybody's going to applaud of you. Everybody's going to applaud you. That's a false visionary. And so Our Lady says, God has called you to a great mission and you're going to have to carry your cross. There's no mission without cross and suffering. But you will overcome them thinking that everything is for the greater glory of God. You will know the goodness of God. You will not lack persecutions and contradictions. I love the realism of God and Our Lady. They're not promoters. If they were promoters of Christianity, nobody would follow them. The one who wants to follow me, carry your cross, be willing to die. Vocational promotion, as some think that it has to be, it's not how Jesus had it. And however, there are centuries of people who have left everything behind because they don't leave it behind for the benefits. They leave it behind for love. Our Lady says, you're not going to be lacking contradictions. You're not going to be lacking great persecutions. But the grace of the Lord will assist you. And Jesus told St. Paul, my grace is enough. My grace is enough. Be not afraid. Always speak to your formator or superior or director with trust and simplicity. And here, very important, brothers and sisters, I'm not a confessor, thanks be to God, because I'm a woman. But it's kind of, sometimes I hear confessions, but I just can't give absolution. So I tell people to go tell a priest instead of telling me. But brothers and sisters, speak with simplicity. To say that I'm a selfish person, they shared 3 chapters in the life of their story. In simplicity, Mother, I'm a selfish person. That's all we have to confess. Not the 3 chapters that led you to what happened to you, what they told you, what the other people did, the cousin, the grandmother, the daughter-in-law, everyone who made you selfish. No, nobody makes you selfish. You are selfish. And so we have to speak with simplicity and with total trust in the love of God that listens to me, that's going to heal me, it's going to deliver me from my sins, from my situations. And if they're difficult situations, it's going to give me the light, the counsel, the wisdom. You will see certain things. She was saying you will have visions of the present and the future, and that you will have to share them in secret to the authorities. You will receive many inspirations in prayer, another gift that St. Catherine would receive. Now here comes something very important, where we see that in the Marian era, Our Lady not only asks for a shrine to do this, or encourages evangelization, like almost all the other apparitions have been like that, but here Our Lady, and this is why we see it's the beginning of the Marian era, where she enters into history and begins as a mother to intervene in the historical realities, to prepare us for the historical realities, to prepare us for the great battle that would come. And it begins here. Look at what she says. The times are very full of calamity. Disgrace will come upon France. The throne will be demolished. There will be calamities all over. And saying this, Our Lady became very sad and had tears in her eyes. Come to the feet, come to the foot of the altar. And that's why this is a promise that's fulfilled. Because we see that when people visit the shrine. Come to the foot of the altar, and graces will be poured upon all those who ask with fervor, much fervor. The one who runs to the altar and asks for grace, it's a promise of Our Lady that they will receive graces. And now here comes another part that's not so pretty. The other one was worse, the calamities. But this is for the life of the community of St. Catherine Library. And this is why I think St. Vincent has appeared, because I desire to pour upon the community so many graces that it needs. I desire it ardently because it causes me much pain that some who abuse the rule and the observances and they don't fulfill it with exactitude. With some, she didn't say all, but some in the community. Some in the community who do not follow the rules or complain about the rules or are lax. Our Lady has a complaint against that community. There are abuses and relaxation in both communities. What are the both communities? The Daughters of Charity and the ones of St. Vincent de Paul, the masculine branch that St. Vincent de Paul founded. So brothers, be careful. And sisters, there's a relaxation in both communities. And despite that there are great souls in them that are not like that. Tell them so that the next one who's going to be the superior re-establishes the rigor of the rule. And we're going to see that all this is fulfilled because she even said who would be the next superior. When this takes place, when they are back in the order with which they were founded, another community will join yours. And we saw it. The community here of the United States. The one of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, and we just celebrated her feast day. And so she returns about the world. There's going to be a moment, there's going to be great danger, and everything will be lost. And I will be with you. Have trust. You will recognize my visit and the protection of God and the protection of St. Vincent over both of his communities. Look how the founders are always on earth and in heaven taking care of the communities. It will not be the same for the other communities. They will have many difficulties. And so the protection of this grace is for the Daughters of Charity and St. Vincent de Paul. And when Our Lady said this, especially when she's speaking about the victims of the other communities, she cried intensely. The clergy of Paris will have many victims. The Archbishop will die. My daughter, the cross will be despised, and the heart of my son will be pierced again. Blood will run through the streets. And at that moment, St. Catherine says that Our Lady was not able to speak. Her words would get stuck, and she was very pale. The entire world will be saddened. And so St. Catherine thinks, when will this occur? An interior voice says, 40 years and 10, and then. For me, it's a mystery. Why didn't she say 50 and then peace? 40 years, then 10 more, and then peace. I don't understand. Maybe Father can tell me the numerical significance. But she said 40 first because 40 is a symbol of liberation. Exodus is 40 years. That's why you have to study Exodus, so we understand more. She speaks about 40, like saying in Exodus, and 10 years after the Exodus is there to be order. And with that order, peace is established. Our Lady was with her 2 hours, and then she disappeared. As she appeared, she disappeared. And we know that in this apparition, she speaks about her personal life, confers to her a mission from God, and announces future events. This is part of the Marian era. She announces future events, good ones and not so good ones. Why? because simply she doesn't come just like as a news person. She comes to prevent that these events take place, and the only way that to prevent them is by, first, that we are attentive with our lamps lit, that we may have our eyes attentive to see the signs of the times. Look at what such and such did. Look, this one killed a whole bunch of young people. This is news, brothers and sisters. The assassination attempts are increasing in universities. What are we doing about this? So, what is Our Lady doing? She's waking us up so we respond with action, with prayer and fasting, which is powerful. Then Our Lady allows her to enter in that familiarity with Our Lady, with that Marian era. I remember that when we went to Medjugorje with the 76 teenagers, and we went to the first apparition, and the most nervous ones were the young people. Well, the young men. The young ladies were like, oh, we're going to apparition. And then the young men were like, oh, what's going to happen? Are we going to see her? And then we said, stop worrying and just know that Our Lady's going to be in front of you. Yeah, but that's what we're going to do, because men are more obedient. And they obeyed. And that's what all the men did. And when we came out, we found all of them crying. All those young men. Ricardo was there amongst them. All those young men were crying. And they said, what happened? I knew Our Lady would, touch their hearts deeply, but what happened? To be a little bit more prudent. And all said something that I smiled. And I smiled, because that's that Marian era. Because all of them told me, we felt as if Our Lady placed her hand over our heads. And it's true that Our Lady touches all of us, but she allowed them to feel it. She allowed them to feel it. And so I want to tell you that all the prophecies that the Lord and Our Lady gave to St. Catherine were fulfilled. What was the mission that they gave to St. Catherine? Elaborate. The Miraculous Medal. Understand that that medal is a mission of God to St. Catherine, given through the Blessed Virgin Mary. But its mission, it's not a sign that stays there, oh nice. It was a mission of God. It was such a mission of God that some weeks after, and we're going to see how the Miraculous Medal appears, some weeks the revolution, the French Revolution, came about in Paris, first place. All the streets were there was a lot of fires, a lot of Charles X was dethroned, substituted by the king of the people, Louis Philippe I, the first teachers, the great teachers of Masonry. And why is this important? Because remember that in 1717, who gathers together? All the Masons, all the Masons gathered together, what's called Freemasonry. All the Masons gather together, that they unite with people of communist philosophy, even though communism hadn't begun. 1717, that's why the famous manifestation that we spoke about. On October 13th, where modern Masonry is established, which is totally the enemy of the church, the faith in Christ. In 1917, October 13, Our Lady of Fatima, and that anniversary of the Masons, she appears showing the miracle of the sun and everything that's happening. And so before you leave, pray before the relic of the Holy Family. So another thing that she tells her is remember to tell what I told the director, which is put order to the community. And then her personal director was chosen to be the director of the community then. Then the other decade, another community joined. And so another prophecy is fulfilled. In 1870, 40 years, came the great moment of great danger. The horrors of the commune, and the killing of Archbishop, and then almost all the priests of Paris. And many religious were also killed. Now, 1870, only a year later, was the First Vatican Council. And we don't understand history. We don't understand why the church does what she does. The church has to speak in First Vatican Council, which was about the great battles that were taking place. The great battle was against the church, against the bishops, against priests, against the Pope. And that's why 1871, the dogma of papal infallibility is proclaimed. And so, of all the prophecies, what is left to fulfill? The era of peace. And just like in definitive triumph of the Immaculate Heart that was said in Fatima, that would bring as a fruit the era of peace. Now we're going to concentrate ourselves on the Miraculous Medal. On November 27th, that's why we celebrate the Miraculous Medal on November 27th of 1830. It's the same year. It was the eve of the first Sunday of Advent. And I think that's very beautiful. That's the eve of Advent. St. Catherine was alone in the chapel praying. And all of a sudden, she hears that rubbing of the silk dress. And it reminds her of the apparition that she had in July. Our Lady appears dressed in white with long sleeves and a closed tunic up to the neck. Her head was covered by a white veil falling down on both sides to her feet. When she tried to describe her face, St. Catherine was only able to say, I can't describe so much beauty. So Our Lady was standing on top of a white globe, which only the superior part area was seen. It wasn't like the whole globe seen. And she was crushing her feet. This is a very important detail. She was crushing a green serpent. But how was that serpent? The serpent was, for those who know about serpents, I don't want to be an expert of serpents, but she was crushing a green serpent with yellow dots. It's the most venomous serpents, for those who know about serpents. Her hands were elevated to the height, not here yet, because you're going to see the process. Were elevated to the height of her heart, and she was holding another small globe of gold crowned with a cross. And the Virgin Mary had a supplicant attitude. And she would see heaven, and she would see the globe, and she would see the globe and heaven, as if offering, the globe and offering all the needs of the world, especially all those that she had announced. Suddenly, the globe disappears from her hands, And Our Lady opened her arms like you see there in the medal. And then and the medal couldn't put it well defined until in Rudupak you do see this. The rays. The rays are coming out from the fingers of Our Lady. Not only the fingers, but they're coming from rings. So Our Lady's rings, Our Lady's fingers have rings, and it's coming out from there. And it's brilliant, precious stones. But some would come out very strong rays, and other medium ones, and others lesser rays, and then others didn't come out. And Saint Catherine asks, what does a different rays mean? And Our Lady answered, all the rays coming from the rings, that the rings represent her mission of mediator of graces. And so we're here speaking about how Marian dogmas are here in the Miraculous Medal. But there were some that there were powerful rays coming out. And that's the ones that asked me for everything. They ask everything to Jesus through the hands of Our Lady. And the medium ones are the ones that from time to time they ask me. And the little ones that barely ever ask. And then the ones that don't have any rays coming out, the ones that never ask. And so what Our Lady is saying is here, she has all the treasures of the graces of Christ to give us. But it depends on us that she can cast out, give out all these graces. She's come with open arms to donate to humanity, like the first sacramental of the Marian era. These graces, we would need them, but she was also saying that many people would set apart from her. And others would say, no, I'm going to go directly to Jesus. I don't have to ask her. Others that from time to time, a problem, and they remember her. And then she came as a mother, and her mission was to give all the graces that the world would need. And so, when she appears, she forms a global circle. Our Lady is drawing a medal. And so it's an oval, but there's something that the circle that has to say to us, and then and becomes like someone's typing and it says, "Oh Mary, conceived without sin, we have those who have recourse to you." And here is talking about the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. "Oh Mary, conceived without sin." And she asks Saint Catherine that we say this phrase. "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who recourse to thee." And we're going to speak about the 12 stars too in the back. Do something. In the moment that she says this, the oval turns, and this is the image that surfaces. The 12 stars, the cross with the bar, uniting the cross with the M, and the hearts of Jesus and Mary. It's the first time that a medal exists with the hearts of Jesus and Mary together. So Our Lady explains that the 12 stars represent the 12 apostles, represent the church, and represent the reign of Our Lady. Therefore, what did she want to tell us with this? That in the moment of the great battle against the church, what did we have to do? Be faithful to the faith of the apostles, faith of the church, and not abandon the church. Perhaps this is that the reign of Our Lady is never separated from the reign of the church. And this St. John Paul II told us. And the cross that speaks about the redemption of Christ and how Jesus pours out his blood to save us. And why is this bar there in the middle? That really it's a letter, the Yoda. It's a letter that means unity. And it's speaking here that the cross is united by this letter and then the M. The unity, indissoluble unity between Jesus and Mary. And the unity of the Redeemer with his mother, the mother of the Redeemer. So it's speaking about the co-redemption like Our Lady is co-redemptrix. And the hearts of Jesus and Mary that represent that the Marian era has as a great standard the unity of the hearts of Jesus and Mary. So much so that she said, why are they there in the reverse? I've never seen a medal with the two hearts. And Our Lady answers, the two hearts together is already eloquent enough. That's what Our Lady answered. And this allows us to remember what Jesus told Sor Lucia. When Sor Lucia asks about why is consecration of the world indispensable. And the Lord answers, beginning now, it may be visible. It's not like it wasn't before, but that it may be made visible, that all the triumphs of God and the victories of God are brought about, the triumphs of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And from now on, the two hearts may be together. And so she's prophesizing here that in the Marian era, one of the great fruits is to raise on high the unity of the hearts of Jesus and Mary. So applaud. And something that happened with her confessor, she asked him, because remember Our Lady said, I want you to make this a seal and then give it away to everyone. But no one can't make a medal without ecclesial approval. Attention. So what happens? And so the archbishop was not very convinced at that moment, but something powerful happened to the archbishop, like what happened to St. Juan Diego's bishop. It turns out Archbishop had a Monsignor, and this Monsignor was chaplain, Napoleon's chaplain. So imagine, Napoleon's chaplain, and accepted from Napoleon, not the Holy See, from Napoleon, accepted that Napoleon would consecrate him a bishop. See what's happening? Therefore, the archbishop wanted to speak to him to get out of that schism, of that total disobedience and irreverence, and never gave him an appointment. Then he says, do you have any medal? Yes, I made one so that when you give permission, we can reproduce it quickly. Give me that medal. And the archbishop places it inside, and that man was denied him so many times an appointment, allowed him to come in. And when they're speaking, let me place something and let's continue the conversation. No, it's a medal to Our Lady that someone gave it to me. And he placed it. And immediately the archbishop saw the total change in the heretic or bishop that repented right then and there and confessed. and asked the next day to proclaim anew the faith publicly. And he had a heart attack and died in the arms of the archbishop. But the archbishop saw the total miracle of the miraculous medal, so gave permission immediately to make 80,000 medals that were given away to the entire region in Paris. But St. Catherine was saying it has to reach the entire world. We made 80,000, but it has to reach the entire world. So it turns out that the first 80,000 were handed out throughout all of Paris. And a week from giving them out, a pandemic came about, cholera. And interestingly enough, only those that did not wear the medal died. There was an entire school of girls, hundreds of girls. It was the area where, let's say, where the pandemic exploded, and the sisters went to take the miraculous medals. All the little girls wore them except one, and that's the only one who contracted the disease. But the religious sisters still ran to the girl who had cholera, risking their own lives to be contaminated. But they were wearing the miraculous medals, and they placed the miraculous medal in the neck, and immediately the little girl was healed. Then there was a soldier from Alençon, where Saint Therese's parents are from, where Saint Therese was born. And from there, he was condemned to death. He blasphemed. I won't even explain further. And the sisters said, this man cannot die like this. They go to this soldier who blasphemed and said horrors to the religious. You're going to die, so why don't you wear this medal? And he wore the medal. He allowed himself to wear the medal. We religious have an art. And then, what happened? At the moment that it was worn, his face completely changed. He fell on his knees. He asked forgiveness for all the blasphemies, for everything that he had said. He asked the sisters to help at that moment, the minutes he had left to profess the faith. And not only that, he said, what most hurts me, to have loved so late. They saw so many witnesses of so many types. I can't say all of them because there's volumes. The witnesses of and the testimonies from the miraculous medal. And that's why this medal was not called miraculous medals. It was called the medal of the Immaculate Conception. But there were so many miracles in all dimensions in human life. Marriage miracles. There was a mother that gave birth, and she and the baby were about to die in the delivery. They put the medal, and both were healed immediately. Physical, spiritual, moral conversions. People that totally against the faith, immense conversions. That's why it began to be called the miraculous medal. By 1836, 15 million medals were spread about. And we're talking about a time that wasn't like now. 15 million medals taken little by little to the entire world. The miraculous medal was already beginning to conquer, very important for us, was beginning to conquer the entire world. Like today, we, our family, have to do the same. Saint Catherine, our Blessed Mother predicted her death, that she would die on a certain date, and it was so. But she died with packets of miraculous medals in her hands, like saying, I've lived spreading them, because she told her entire community, give out these miraculous medals. And her last words, "O Mary conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee." And how did she die? Like Our Lady has promised in this family. She died serenely, without agony, and with a smile in her lips. A Marian death. Now for her death in 1876, more than 1 million medals were distributed all over the world. The body of St. Catherine, as some of you have seen, was found incorrupt and continues being incorrupt. Now, what was the greatest shocks in the academic world, let's say, or the highest was the conversion of Ratisbonne, that you have the rosaries and the medals. Who was Ratisbonne? He was a man of much money, a lawyer, a banker, of Jewish family, even though he didn't practice Judaism because he was a Mason. Look at all the confabulations that we have here going on. He was 27 years old. He hated, like super hatred against Catholics. Why? Because his brother, his beloved brother, had converted to Catholicism, but on top of that, had become a priest. And on top of that, he was a great distributor of the Miraculous Medal. And what was his greatest mission? The conversion of Jews, because he had been a Jew. And so Alphonse, had wanted to go to a place before getting married, but he went on the wrong boat. How significant that it's the vision of the boat. He goes on the wrong boat, and in January of 1842, on a tourist trip, instead of going to where he wanted to go, he goes to, there was a mistake, and he arrived in Rome instead of Naples. And so he felt obliged to visit a friend of the family, Baron Theodore of Boussier, who was a Protestant, that by the Miraculous Medal was converted to Catholicism. So when he sees the Baron, receives him with much cordiality, offered him to show him around Rome. And so what does Ratisbonne say? In the entire meeting, he speaks horrors about Catholicism. And the Baron, with silence, listened patiently. But at the end, we have to be astute. After the 3 hours of all the blasphemies and the horrors against Catholicism, at the end, the friend says, well, since you're so sure about what you believe in, what you think, I want to give you something so that you wear it. And he says, what? This medal. Well, clearly indignant, Alphonse rejected the medal and the Baron answered, well, why do you reject it with such indignation? It's not going to do anything to you if you don't, since you believe firmly nothing's going to happen. So he challenges him. And Ratisbonne then wears it, because either way it's going to be indifferent. There's nothing going to happen because, you're already so clear about that and so convinced about that. So Ratisbonne felt it was such a folly, or so something to really laugh about. And so he put it on. And then one of the ones who was there went to St. Mary Major to pray for the conversion of Ratisbonne. He's like a victim soul for him. Praise. And so the Baron goes to pray for the friend, and where is the funeral going to take place? So he's praying 100 memoirs for the conversion of Ratisbonne, and he dies. And he says, accompany me. I'm going to go prepare the Baron says, accompany, I'm just going to prepare the funeral. So fine, Radis wants to stay in the last pew. At least he entered the church, you know. So meanwhile, he's making all the funeral arrangements. What happens to Ratisbone? A few moments upon sitting in the church, he felt like this great turmoil going on in his heart. He raised his eyes, and the entire building disappeared. And one of the chapels on the left, dedicated to St. Michael the Archangel, was filled with a light that was never before seen. And in the middle of that light, what appeared in splendor over the altar, where all your rosaries and medals were touched, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared with all her splendor as she appeared on the miraculous medal. She appeared, and he felt such an irresistible strength. He went to the lady, and she with her hand gave a signal for him to kneel. So think about all this that's happening. He kneels and sees Our Lady's face. She did not tell me anything, and I understood everything. For us, in seconds, he understood everything about the Catholic faith. What would have taken us 20 years to study, in a few seconds, contemplating Our Lady, he understood everything about the Catholic faith. So the friend finishes doing all the funeral arrangements when he sees Ratisbone crying, kneeling, and kissing the miraculous medal. And he shares to him what had happened. And so that same afternoon, he says, come, I'm going to take you to a place, and takes him. All this is very close to our convent. Takes him to the Jesuit church, which is the Jesuit church, to ask that he be baptized. And that's where Ratisbone was baptized, that same afternoon. The Pope of that time called what happened to Ratisbone a true canonical miracle. And so Ratisbone entered the priesthood and became a Jesuit, and was destined to go serve in Paris. And so he united with his brother priests to work in spreading the miraculous medal and convert the Jews. See all the knots that are being undone. Then, after 10 years, he asked the Jesuit order to go out and found the religious of Our Lady of Sion. These religious are the ones that are now have the convent where was the praetorium of Pilate. But when we go to the visitation, Ein Karim, I always say, look at that convent that's there. That's where Ratisbone is buried. That's the convent of the Daughters of Zion that dedicate to pray day and night for the conversion of Jews. There, next to the visitation, he was visited by Our Lady. That's why he chose to go there. And so in that same altar, Saint Maximilian Kolbe celebrated his first Mass. But not only celebrated his first Mass, when he came to study at Rome, why does everybody know the story of Ratisbone? Because at that level in Rome, the miracle of Ratisbone is a miracle and continued in history generation after generation. So what happened? Saint Maximilian, who was such a lover of the Immaculate and who knew everything about the Immaculate and the miraculous medal, would go every day to pray there. And then would go to another church of the Holy Apostles, and you have the pew there where he prayed. But he would go pray where Our Lady appeared. And that's why he wanted to celebrate his first Mass there, which also all the things were touched there. This Ratisbon's story touches deeply Saint Maximilian. Why? Because remember that Ratisbon, well, that he was good. He was a banker, he was a lawyer, but he was a non-practicing Jew and he was a Mason, a Ferris against the church. And so why is St. Maximilian touched so much about, so what did he see October 13, 1917, the great Masonic protest and parade that they did against the blasphemies against St. Peter's Basilica. And so he began to unite. If this happened to this man who was blaspheming and speaking horrors against the church, against the faith, against Christ, through the miraculous medal, he was able to be converted. He began to understand the miraculous medal was what he called the weapon, the bullet of the apostles of these times, the bullet with which they would defend themselves. And that's why he realizes that the miraculous medal came given by the Blessed Virgin Mary to rescue all those who are far away from the Lord, to give more graces than those who, in the degree that we're close to the Lord, and to return humanity to God and to protect us from the dangers, all types of dangers. Brothers and sisters, cholera, pandemics, lack of faith, rejection of the faith, enemies, all types, health, all types of miracles. It's impressive. Saint Maximilian understands that if there was a manifestation against a church, and so he said, wait a minute, if it's possible that there's a procession of enemies that so openly can, with such strength, can openly lash out their strength of hatred against the church and traumatizes and terrorizes, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay with our arms crossed? Are we not going to do anything? No. We have to do something. Apart from praying, we have to act. And this is where St. Maximilian decides to found the Militia of the Immaculate. And why does he give the name militia? First, because he understood. Remember that he saw that protest, that it was like an army. And so he understood that the enemy was channeling his hatred in a militant way against the church, Christ and the truth and the gospel. Therefore, there had to be a military order in the people of God, discipline, sacrifice, everything that we don't have. That the only way was an army that had the same way, but a totally different weapon. And the first weapon was prayer, sacrifice, fasting, the miraculous medal, the cross, and the rosary. Those were the weapons. And so Maximilian said the greatest defensor of the church and the lashings of the enemy is the Immaculate. And we have to battle against the enemies, then we have to put many bullets in our rifles. That's why he would give away and give all the friars hundreds of miraculous medals so that they would give it to every person. And he said, don't give it to just the Catholics. Give it to the ones who don't believe. Give it to the ones who are in sin. Give it to the ones who are cold. Give it to the ones who don't care about anything. It doesn't matter. Give it because Our Lady said that all those who carry the miraculous medal will receive graces of conversion and protection from her part. I can share with you, brothers and sisters, beautiful testimonies that happened to us with the miraculous medals. Especially since we travel so much in the airports, in the airplanes. Perhaps we're passing by and there's someone that I don't even know who he is, or it's nothing, and says, don't you have something to give me? And I say, yes, of course. Look, this is a miraculous medal. It's Our Lady that's going to take care of you, protect you. If you see the faces of these people, you melt. I'm not Catholic, but it doesn't matter. But she's your mother, no problem. You just have to wear it. You carry it with you. If you see the transformation of their faces, people who are in mortal sin, because we give them the miraculous medal and they begin to cry. I don't know what's happening in their hearts, but they begin to cry. It happens to a lot with the airplane stewards. Oh, what a blessing that there's the nuns in the plane. Do you want something to accompany you always? Yes, yes, yes. We give them a medal. Oh, they kiss it and they don't separate themselves from it. And they don't even know the story, and I don't have time to share it. And so, brothers and sisters, it's impressive to see what happens with the miraculous medal. This sacramental was the first bullet that Our Lady gave us for this great battle that we would wage. And Saint Maximilian said, they asked him, how did it occur to you to found the militia? And he said, when he saw that horrible protests and the horrible things they were doing in the Plaza of St. Peter, he had a clear image in front of him. The miraculous medal. And he understood at that moment that he had to do a militia and that the first weapon would be the miraculous medal. And that instead of shooting to kill, they would give the miraculous medal so that life would be given. And so St. Maximilian said that the greatest ammunition is not food or great weapons. The greatest ammunition we have is the miraculous medal. And all those belong to the militia must carry it. I found the original paper that St. Maximilian wrote. Now it's a little longer, but the original, which is a little page, and that says twice, the obligation to use the miraculous medal. And once it speaks about the mission of spreading the miraculous medal to the entire world to conquer every heart, every soul, and the entire world for the Immaculate and through her for the Sacred Heart. And then there's some people say, no, thank you. And then they turn around and then they say, yeah, please give it to me. The attraction of God. The attraction towards the miraculous medal is impressive. How much time do I have left? All night. Saint Catherine Labouré said that when the medal would reach the entire world, Our Lady would begin to make triumphs in the hearts. And so there we would proclaim that Our Lady would be Queen of all hearts. And that's the advocation of Saint Louis Marie Grignon de Montfort. And Saint Maximilian said that the miraculous medal was one of the most efficacious means, one of the most efficacious means to promote the triumph of the Immaculate Heart. We always have to share the medal, not from time to time, when you're a meeting or when you have an extra. No, always, always. He had the zeal to give away the miraculous medals, and all his friars did. We have to place it to the children to protect them from the dangers that would come upon them. To the elderly, to take care of them from loneliness and abandonment that they will experience. He was prophetic. The young people, you have to carry it so you have necessary strength and the protection of Our Lady to resist temptations and traps that the enemy will place. It was a prophetic word that St. Maximilian was. You have to give it to those who don't go to the church, those who are afraid of confession, the ones who are mocking religious practice, those who are against the teachings of the faith, those are immoral, or those who are heretics. Though we have to offer the miraculous medal to all unconditionally, because the moment that you carry it with you, the Immaculate will attain the conversion for their souls. And let's applaud to Our Lady. And I love finding this other prophecy of St. Maximilian, because we do it and we've seen the fruits. But we thought it was our craziness, but it doesn't matter. God does things in our craziness. And for those who reject it, but in a one way, put it secretly in the person or in the area, because sooner or later, Our Lady will show sooner or later what she's capable of doing. And I will share some testimonies about this. There was a family that had a son or a daughter super addicted to drugs. And they come to speak to us, and they share the story, and that they've taken him there, over there, all these different centers of rehab. And he refused. And so we told the mother, take this miraculous medal, it's blessed, and put it underneath his mattress. She put it underneath his mattress, pray the memorare, put it underneath the mattress when he doesn't see it. And so nobody lifts up the mattress. So he's not going to know that the medal is there. 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, the young man appeared in his mom's house crying that he wanted to leave the drugs. And how did you find out? I don't know. One night I felt a very strong heat and such a great love that I knew that I needed to have a better life. And he ended up being in the Cenáculo of Medjugorje. We've seen, there's wives that tell me, my husband is cheating on me. And I said, put a little miraculous medal in the pocket of his pant. When he's showering, put it in the pocket of his pant. And brothers and sisters, impressive, the witnesses of repentance of these men. I'm not going to speak about women, because you can put it somewhere else. But the repentance of these men asking forgiveness to their wives. And so the ideal is that they carry it with them. But if they can't carry it with them, just put it close to them, because St. Maximilian said, sooner or later, Our Lady will show what she's capable of doing. It's important what I asked for this year, to share the miraculous medal. We have to conquer the world with the miraculous medal. Brothers and sisters, I don't even know what word to use, because amazement isn't enough. When Our Lady revealed to me the campaign of the miraculous medal, I wasn't even thinking anything about this. I wasn't even reading the testimonies or the prophecies of St. Maximilian, but I was praying. I was coming in a plane, because there's no space. I was coming in the plane, and I always sit at the window, because wherever I'm passing by, I'm blessing, I'm praying, wherever I am. And all of a sudden, I saw something erase, and I began to see the waters, how the waters were growing, and how they were reaching the coastlines. And at that moment, I began to pray the rosary for protection of the world. And closing my eyes and praying the rosary, I saw the entire map, but like as a silhouette. And the entire silhouette and the coast, all the countries, filled with lights. And I said, how beautiful we could put candles. And then I heard in my heart a voice, an interior voice that said, put miraculous medals in all the coastlines of the world to avoid the growing of the waters, because the growing of the waters will flood a lot of countries and cities. And we're seeing it, brothers and sisters. The famous floods that are in places, it's because the water is coming out and it's entering the city. And seeing so much water, it's worse. So much rain, it's worse. And so then I began to pray and fast, and the more I prayed and fast, the more Our Lady showed me. But not only the coastlines, all the places where there's danger of natural disasters. Brothers and sisters, the entire world is in danger. We have to be apostles of the miraculous medal. We have to give people. And when I did the video, like all of mine, I don't plan to do them. I was making the bags of the miraculous medal, and I said, sister, let's just do this little video. The entire world is asking for medals. Well, that video made an increase in the social media family members. And so it's impressive. I thought people would react like, the Marian ones. It was improvised. I was there just making the medal bags. But the entire world is asking for the medals. Because it doesn't matter the degree of faith or the degree of relationship with the Lord. Everyone's afraid. And if we're giving them a solution of love, a solution of the good, brothers and sisters, let's do the same that St. Maximilian, to distribute the miraculous medals. He said that the only thing that when he was in the concentration camp, the only thing that he was, when other people were thinking, oh, I'm going to die like this, I'm going to die like that. No, the only thing that he was sad about is not to have miraculous medals to give to all the prisoners. And St. Catherine Abray said 25 times to her superior and director that the miraculous medal may be spread the entire world. The world is going to need the miraculous medal to defend themselves from all the evils that were coming. And I think, brothers and sisters, that the moment has come that we fulfill our mission. It's the mission of the year. Not only that you carry it, but all of you have to have the miraculous medal, because the promise is that we carry it with us. But also, this light cannot be hidden. This medal, we have to take it to the entire world. We have to give it away. It doesn't matter if it's whoever. It doesn't have to be gold. It doesn't have to be whatever the material, but that you have the miraculous medal, because it has the promise as the first sacramental of the Marian era. It's ammunition, it's a bullet, it's a shield, St. Maximilian said. A shield against the attacks of Satan. If we want to be apostles of Our Lady and be triumphant in this moment of darkness, all of us have to be apostles of the miraculous medal. May the Lord bless you abundantly.